what's up, everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to Monster Energy Supercross 4, the official video game, where today we're going to be recapping the 2022 Oakland Supercross that just happened over the weekend in real life. That is right, ladies and gentlemen, the Monster Energy Supercross Championship is off and running in the 2022 campaign, and we're going to talk about round 2 that just happened on Saturday night. I was there, had a good time, met a lot of people, also met some good fans of the channel and stuff like that, including Endometriosis, I believe is how you say his name, a guy that built some tracks in MX Sim, building some tracks in MX Bikes now. He talked to me about a couple cool projects he's working on, so I'm stoked to see what's going on with that. And yeah, to anybody else that I also said hello to, thanks for saying what's up. Always good to catch up with you guys. Let's talk about this race, though, which had a 125 two-stroke, which is why I'm riding it right now in this game, make the main event in the 250 Supercross main event. The first time that's happened since... I think we look back in the annals of history. It was 2008, maybe. I think it was 2008 that Michael Willard on a KTM 125 did it. And yeah, it's been a long time, almost a decade and a half since we've had a 125 two-stroke make the main event. But Stank Dog, Jared Stanky, made it this weekend. The crowd loved it, and that was pretty cool to see. So I felt like a little bit of like a tribute to him doing it, that I'd ride a 125 in my recap video. I know that there's some drama going on with him and our own Steve Mathis over there at PulpMX about some stuff, and I'm not going to really get into that. You know, it's just cool to me that there was a 125 out there that made the main event. That's pretty cool. The fans were eating it up all around the stadium while he was in transfer spot in the heat race. So that's just cool. Just cool to see, and that's how I'm going to leave it. So let's talk about both of these main events. I'll start off with the 450 class. And again, spoiler alert if you haven't already seen it, but going to be spoiling the race, so shut it off right now if you haven't already seen the race. But the 450 main event was won by none other than Team Fried. Jason Anderson gets it done. And that to me was like a really cool, like, feel-good story. Obviously, myself, I've become a lot closer with Tom Jurnett of Team Fried in the last like half a year or so, because he's been doing some work with Racer X. So he and I get to talk quite a bit, and I get to, you know, kind of pick his brain about things that Jason's been through over the last couple of years. And, you know, Jason's had a lot of ups and downs. The Husky thing doesn't seem like it really ended very amicably, or maybe the way that Jason had hoped it would throughout his career. And, you know, goes to Kawasaki, kind of gets almost like a rebirth, if you will, with his career. And that's just really cool to see him get a win again. You know, it seemed like it was one of those things that, like, was it ever going to happen again? Was the championship magic of 2018 worn off? Was he starting to fade a little bit? And he even acknowledged some of that a little bit in the post-race press conference, where, like, even he felt like a little bit that he had taken some steps back that he wasn't sure he'd find again. But gets the race win and looked a lot like the Jason that we saw at the opening round. He just got like a better start. I felt like through the midpoint of Anaheim 1, Anderson was probably the fastest rider on the track, or at least the guy that was really making kind of the most moves forward. And, you know, this time out, he got a better start. He got to run up front early on. He passed McElrath for second pretty early on, then got to his teammate Cianciarulo, who we all knew was going to be going backwards as he continues to deal with that AC separation. And past him, AC kind of sort of proved a bit of a roadblock there for a little bit for Plessinger. I think just long enough to get a small gap for Anderson established, and then Anderson was kind of gone from there. AP stayed close for quite a while, but made a couple mistakes down the stretch that allowed the gap to open up, and then Anderson just stretched it out and won the race. Like, from an outside perspective, it looked kind of easy just because he was able to manage it pretty well from the front, but you know, he said in the press conference that he didn't know AP was as close as he was. So once he realized AP was there, kind of had to pick it back up a little bit. It was a little bit of a brain fart moment. But, you know, kind of gathered himself in and won the race. And it was cool to see the emotion afterwards from him. He's not one that does a lot of media, so we don't really get to see that side of him very much. Even though he does the Team Fried thing, he doesn't really, I feel like, you know, show that hard work mentality side that he has to go through. So for him to, you know, open up about losing his grandmother last year and, you know, missing his grandfather at the races, but he was home watching. I'm sure they're proud. And that whole thing was just cool. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are all humans too. And as much as we look at them as like these celebrity superstar type of guys, they're just also people as well that go through, you know, the same rough patches of life that we do. So for him to have the tumultuous last couple of years that he's had, and then regroup and win a race and now look like he's pretty well in it for the title hunt, that's awesome. So was stoked to see him win. Was also really stoked to see This is the second race in for all these guys on these new bikes, with Anderson on the Cowie, Plessinger on the KTM, Tomac on the Yamaha, and Stewart on the Husqvarna, and they all finished inside the top 5. The only guy inside of the top 5 that was not, on a different bike this year from last year was Justin Barcia, and even he is still, relatively new to the gas. Like, he's been on it for a year, but that brand and everything is just kind of new. So it's a really interesting top 5, I feel like, at this race, where we got a good flavor of different characters running up front and showing their strong hand throughout the race and stuff like that. I felt like at one point I thought like Ferrandis and Webb from 6th and 7th were going to kind of work through those guys a little bit, because they were going faster. Ferrandis significantly so at one point was going faster than Malcolm and Eli in front of him, but then he kind of stalled out. The last half of the race ended up being, I wouldn't say a boring race, but one that looked like there was a lot of stuff that might materialize that never really did. So that part of it was a little bit, I guess, dull, if you want to call it that, but everybody kind of stayed the course, rode it out. It was a technical and kind of difficult track to deal with as the race went on, because the rut in the whoops was gnarly and the ruts in transition were also getting a little bit tough to deal with. So it seemed like everybody was pretty content to stay where they were. And in the end, Anderson wins from Plessinger, who, like I said, he rode very well. Barcia gets 3rd. He now leads the points. And suddenly, we're only 2 rounds into this championship, but we're almost kind of back to square one. The top 9 are separated by just 10 points. Everybody is like kind of right in it. Everybody's had almost like one bad race, one good race. Obviously, Roxon goes down in the main event. He ends up 13th. So the winner from last week has a rough one. Webb got 2nd last week. He ends up 7th. He was sick most of the day, he says. So he was kind of dealing with that. And one bad race, one good race. Tomac goes 6-4. Malcolm goes 7-5. Anderson goes 10-1. It's a super mixed bag so far through 2 rounds. And it doesn't seem like there's any one person that's really going to grab it by the horns yet and run. I thought that this was going to be Webb's chance to kind of like take the series early, because he was 3rd fastest in qualifying, obviously gets 2nd at the opener. I felt like he was going to be a good shout to maybe win the main event. I didn't actually know he was sick until after the race, but I could totally see that playing a factor in the endurance factor of this race, because it was a pretty long main event. It felt like it dragged on for a while. So I don't know. It's kind of like one of those things where Barcia's the points leader right now. I could see him holding on to it for quite a while from here, because everybody's still kind of jockeying out, and Barcia seems like he starts well and has been running strong these first 2 rounds. But I also could see Anderson coming back and repeating this weekend. I could see Chase Sexton coming firing this weekend. It's an interesting 450 class. Like, I don't really know which way it's going to go just yet. I still have Webb for my title pick. I'm not going to back down from that at this early stage of the season. But I do think that the early stages of this championship are going to stay more wide open than I had originally thought. I think we're going to see maybe a couple faces that I didn't expect to win get in there and win races. Like Anderson was a guy I didn't necessarily have picked for a win this year, and obviously now he has one. I don't necessarily think I had Barcia for a win either, but I could easily see him winning a race. Tomac's going to get in there. AP might win a race, but I also had him picked to win a race this year, so I'm not backing down from that one. I still feel like that's definitely one of those things that will happen. Tomac's going to win. Malcolm could win easily one of these races at this point. Webb's going to win. We already saw Roxon win. Chase Sexton's going to win races. Like it's still pretty wide open. And I love that about this early season chaos is that, you know, we'll get to round 10, you know, around Daytona, and everyone always says, oh, the championship starts at Daytona, but it really kind of ends at Daytona. Like, usually by the time we get to Daytona, the guy leading the championship or the guys leading the championship are going to be the ones that we see throughout. It's not like we're going to see some crazy second half resurgence usually. So, you know, I'm just enjoying this kind of spot we're in with the 450 class. It's wide open. Cool to see Anderson get a win. AP rebounding from last week. I actually sat next to Plessinger and his wife Kendall on the plane home. And they're staying out in California from now until through Minneapolis. So they're not actually working with Alden Baker right now. Obviously, they're on his training program, but they're not going back to Florida every week and doing that program. So, yeah, everybody's got a little bit kind of something fresh going on right now. Still kind of the new season vibes going. And, 450 class, wide open. Catch the fever. Maybe catch the Mookie fever if he wins a race. But yeah, cool to be there. A lot of fun. Like I said, let's talk 250s a little bit here on my recap. Christian Craig again just looked fantastic pretty much all day long. The only guy that looked like he was pace-wise going to challenge him was Michael Mosiman. Mosiman was fastest in the first qualifying session, but then Craig got him back in the second session. And unfortunately, the problem right now is that Craig's getting starts and Mosiman isn't. So that's kind of one of those tough things that we're just going to have to kind of deal with as fans, is that until Craig doesn't get a good start, it's going to be tough for anybody to beat him, because he has consistently so far in heat races and main events this year outstarted Lawrence, Mosiman. You could even put Hammaker there. He's gotten ahead of those guys early, and it's kind of made the difference. They just can't really keep pace with him, can't run with him when he's getting a gap established out front. And by halfway through, the race is kind of over because the gap is big enough that Craig's got it handled from out front. Now, I was a little bit surprised this weekend. Joe Shimoda hole shot the main event. He led a couple laps. I thought Joe would hang in there a little bit longer. I thought he would lead 5-6 laps before Craig got him, but obviously he stalled on lap 3. I think it was lap 3 or 4. Stalled the bike, gave up the race lead. Everybody kind of went by, and then Shimoda battling with Hammaker a little bit later on for second. Endo's in the whoops, goes over the bars, remounts, and I think he finished 7th again this week or something like that. But I was a little bit disappointed in Joe so far this year. I expected a little bit more out of him so far. Haven't quite seen it, but maybe he does start turning it around. Maybe that start was just kind of like the fire that needed to light underneath of him to say, you started there, but you didn't finish there. You got to kind of turn those things around, more or less. You got to start there and finish there, or at the very least start close to there and finish higher than where you start. It's been a rough couple of rounds so far for Joe. I'm sure that he's not happy with the way he's riding. But on the flip side, within the PC tent, Seth Hammaker has to be stoked. He's been riding fantastically. His starts have been great. His one detriment, and he knows it because he mentioned it in the press conference, is the whoops right now. He's not gelling too well with the whoops. If you watch him in qualifying, there are some scary moments. So the good thing is he's saved those scary moments, not gone down, and been able to regroup from those moments. But he's got to get that fixed because he's going to have a big one in the whoops soon if he doesn't. And that'll be frustrating to watch because he's been so good and consistent throughout the season so far that if he does have a big one in the whoops, it kind of kills all that momentum he's been building up and hopefully doesn't get hurt again. But I guess you just never really know. But he's looked great otherwise. He looks like he's a little uncomfortable late in the race when he starts to get tired, and he's also mentioned that too, that he's been frustrated with how he's ridden late in the races because he feels like he has more in the tank and hasn't been able to show it because he either gets nervous or the little bit of fatigue that he starts facing causes him to make too many mistakes. And Lawrence almost got him at A1, then he gets him this weekend in Oakland late. But Hammaker's ridden very, very well. For someone that flew well under the radar coming into this season, I feel like we were talking about everybody on that team but him coming into the season. He's doing great and showing his worth in this class against a coast that's, in my opinion, a little bit tougher than the one he went up against last year. So, been cool to see his development cycle. He's kind of steadily improved to this point, and I'm sure he's going to win one of these races here soon, and he's still right in the title hunt, which is all you can ask for out of a second-year Supercross pro, basically. So good on him. It's been disappointing to see Lawrence not get good starts because I do think that late in the race he's on par with Craig's pace. He just has not gotten the starts to show it at all, and I think he is one of the two guys, Mosiman included, that I think can start with Craig and finish with Craig, but he hasn't started there, and it's been frustrating to watch because as you watch him try to work his way through the field, you can almost see his frustration. He's kind of like, man, I shouldn't even be making this pass. I should be up there with those guys already. But he has to come from, I think this week he started in 7th, was in 5th pretty early on, but then kind of got stuck there and didn't make the passes early that he needed to. And by the time Craig was into the lead, he was out of there. So, yeah, I think if Hunter hole shots, same way with Mosiman, I think either one of those guys is going to win a race. If Hunter hole shots A2, even if Craig's right there, or San Diego this weekend, even if Craig is right there, I still think Hunter might have it in him to get Craig off the top here because I don't think Craig is going to continue being perfect, obviously. And Hunter has been fantastic late in the races. He's obviously got the fitness and the speed and everything that shows late in the races. He just hasn't started up front to show that. So, if he gets a start, I think fully 100% he's going to win. Mosiman just needs to avoid early mistakes, man. Did the same thing at Anaheim. He didn't get a good start, but that was the gate flinch thing, so I didn't really chalk it up to like a bad start necessarily. But then to cut down out of basically a bull berm to try to go down the inside of the whoops while in traffic on the first lap of the race, and basically just got punted to the ground by everybody coming up on the inside of him. It's like, probably got to be a little bit smarter on the first lap of the race. And then this weekend was battling for second. He was on Hammaker, I think it was, for second on lap 6 or whatever. Just clips an inside tough block and just a real slow, awkward tip over, and that was all it wrote. Like, it took him a little bit to get started again. And, I think he had the pace to win. I don't know if he had the pace to catch Craig in the main event by that stage of it, but straight up race pace-wise, he's fast enough to run with Craig. He just doesn't start with him. Same thing with Lawrence. So it's been a little bit weird in this 250 class so far, just because as good as Craig has been, I think it's been a little start-dependent. And I'm curious to see how Craig fares coming through the field. Like, if he does have a bad start, ends up 10th off start this weekend, I think him getting second or third out of that is actually going to be a huge win, because it'll show that, like, he is kind of matured beyond some of the mistakes that he's made in the past couple of years when, like, things aren't going his way and he kind of either folds up or crashes. So I almost want to see that this weekend. I almost want to see Craig have a mid-pack start and come forward, because I want to see what his, capabilities are. If he comes forward and wins the race from a mid-pack start, then I'm out on Lawrence and Moseman for a little bit, because I'm like, that was your chance. If Craig can start back there and win the race, so too should you guys be able to do the same thing. Like, it's not a, he's going to start back there and finish second. He could start back there and win, and I don't know that I would be shocked by that premise. So we'll have to see. I still think that it's too early for me to 100% stamp Craig as the title pick at this point. But I do believe at this point he's definitely the favorite. With Nichols going out and everything kind of unfolding as it has so far in that class, be hard-pressed to find someone that won't pick Craig to win the title at this point. But he still is kind of his own worst enemy and has been over the years. So we'll have to see how he kind of handles that pressure moving forward. Does he stay, as consistent and smooth and more or less flawless as we've seen him the last couple of weeks so far, or is there going to be some mistakes starting to shine through like we've seen in the past with Craig? I'm holding out a little bit to 100% stamp that Craig's winning this championship until we see a bad race, like a quote bad start and or bad ride out of him, and then I'll go from there. But right now, it definitely looks good, and it's really cool to see him winning these races. Obviously, he went on social media this past week and was kind of, explaining his career a little bit, because he's had to deal with some of the haters saying, like, why is he still in the 250 class? But he's had a gnarly career. He was almost paralyzed at one point. He had a really bad back injury when he first started his career. Then he was hurt pretty much every single year after that. Like, he only had one real healthy season on TLD. And then everything after that was just hurt. And so then he pseudo-retired for a couple of years. It was just doing construction work, and then came back in 2016 when Geico needed a rider. And he's kind of been ascending since then, I would say. Like, he has won races for sure, but now I feel like he's maybe at the best we've ever seen Craig. And that's a cool story to see his journey back to the top. We saw a pretty gnarly journey with with Colt Nichols to win a championship last year. But Craig's journey might be the most gnarly, aside from maybe Zach Osborne, of, career ending or different paths to get to the top kind of situations. So yeah, excited to see what Craig's got in store. But I'm definitely excited for San Diego this weekend. It is my hometown race. I was born and raised there, so for me this is awesome, going back to San Diego to watch some Supercross. Obviously, Petco Park is kind of the new venue that we've been going to for the last 6-7 years now. But I like Petco Park a lot. I was a regular attendee of Padres baseball games in the last 2 decades. Had season tickets at one point. Have probably been to that stadium 150 to 200 times in my lifetime. So I know that stadium very, very well. And it's always fun to go back there. Fun to visit downtown San Diego, Gaslamp District, Seaport Village, just all the cool stuff that there is to see down there. And hopefully I'll see you guys there this weekend as well. If anybody's going to the San Diego Supercross, please feel free, if you see me walking around, to stop me and say hello. Always love chatting with you guys, doing some bench racing when I can. I'm usually pretty free and open to talk, so unless I'm deep in conversation with someone, do not hesitate to interrupt me and say hello. And yeah, looking forward to it this weekend. San Diego winners. Let's see who I can pick to win this weekend. I am going to say... I'll say Eli Tomac wins this weekend in the 450 class. And I'll say Christian Craig wins again in the 250 class. I think he's still looking too strong. But I'm going to go star Yamaha sweep. I think Tomac has been steadily improving. His starts are coming around on that bike a little bit. I think this weekend he gets a better start than he has been getting. And more or less controls from the front, I will say. I think he starts like 4th. Gets into the lead early because we'll have a couple guys like McElrath up there or something again. And takes off and wins. So I got Tomac. I got Craig. Love to hear what you guys think, though, in the comment section below. If there's anything I didn't bring up that you wanted me to talk about, please feel free to bring it up in the comment section below. I'm always happy to continue discussion down there. But, yeah, thanks, guys, for tuning in. Watch another video here on Start Your Systems. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. And, yeah, San Diego coming up this weekend. Looking forward to it. So I'll see you guys in San Diego, and hope to see you guys in all of our future videos coming out on the channel this week, as always. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.